there isn't consensus in the business community at this moment, and those who disconsent from what appears to be still a majority view at this moment should raise their voices very loudly, because I think you'll have the momentum with you, and it's the momentum that we need to seek to develop, and we'll also need there to come to different associations where business can collaborate more with civil society organizations and this is perhaps a little bit of heresy in the United States, work with government and see what actually together can be achieved to exercise the kind of leadership that we need. We will need unusual alliances, unusual partnerships, because we're in an unusual situations. And the stakes are too high to simply let it happen because it might be too much of a risk. Not a complete answer. I'm not sure that I have one, but we have to do everything possible, and particularly our generation has to seriously question how we will go down in the history books. Because if over the 4 billion years that this planet has existed, the 200,000 years that humanity is here, it's only over the last 50 years that we are, and pardon my language, screwing up this planet in such a massive way. That is our generation. That's people who are taking decisions now. And we will have to do something extraordinary to change the course for which we are responsible together. And I'm having this kind of conversation with my daughters. And I'm sure that many of you are. How do you explain this afterwards?
I can't resist, Sarah. I think you talked about the relationship between people and natural resources. There's a third element as the economy reshapes, which gets to questions of abundance and scarcity, and that's information. And information is remarkably abundant. A lot of our economy is based on it. Figuring that out, that may be something that helps change the equation in positive ways, because it can help us understand the other things better and use them better. And you know, I'll always say Jeffrey's excellent point, very much building on Ernst's point. We always talk about short-termism in business, and we know it's a very powerful force. And at the same time, businesses very often more than governments take a long-term view about the way the world is changing. And I've cited a number of times, an interview I did, and asked why the US business community moved to the left of the Bush administration on climate. And I said, I don't think it's about left and right, I think it's about past, present, and future. And most businesses don't have the luxury, despite all the quarterly pressures and so on, of forgetting about what the future looks like. You don't have that luxury. You have to think ahead. And so that's a powerful message that I think business can send. It's not about, you know, which US senator sits on top of coal or corn. It's not about you know, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. This is about the future, and if we remember the future and I'm talking to the guy who founded Seventh Generation, it's preaching to the choir, but it's thinking about the future and making sure that our public policies are based on that and enable business to make the right kind of investments. That's good for individual company competitiveness, that's good for national competitiveness, and it's good for our global security and salvation. And that's what I think businesses have to focus on.
Can I build on that for a moment? And I absolutely agree there, Aron. What would be helpful also if we can change the rules of the game a little bit. And as GRI, we believe that it is actually very important that we become clearer about the kind of metrics that are needed to inform decision making. And currently, we're having two parallel systems. There is conventional business reporting, and then we have this new practice, sustainability reporting, that is a kind of a parallel track. We believe now as GRI that needs to converge. What we in the end are talking about and have to talk about is a complete transformation of corporate reporting, where the kind of challenges that are there in the transition to a sustainable economy are incorporated in the way that we think. Because when we change the metrics of how you measure business results, you change also how we condition our own thinking. So the GRI actually wants to call for an accelerated process to start to formulate what are the contours of a framework for integrated reporting. We again think on the same logic that we earlier discussed, and we've discussed this at the board too, Ricardo, that it is actually relatively urgent. If you wait for this to happen on a voluntary sphere, it will take ages. We don't have that long. So our proposition is that over the coming year, the G20 should consider the idea to invite the major standard setters in this world, both on the financial reporting standard side, setting side, as well as on the sustainability reporting standards side, to sit together and to task them within a set framework, time frame, to work out what at least the beginnings of a framework for integrated reporting could look like. A kind of reporting that helps us to inform how companies can be successful in a sustainable economy. And that will still have to evolve over time, but we'll need a kind of a strawman framework to begin with. That will need to be a process, but we need a mandate to have this kicked off. The G20 took a few wonderful initiatives over the past to do with financial stability. They have shown that they can act when they felt that there was an urgency to act. We believe that this is a very strategic field where the G20 can also act and say, we want to see progress here. Because when we can come to more of a consensus of changing metrics, that means that the kind of paradox that many are struggling with in their decision-making within companies can be conditioned somewhat differently, and that we're getting information from all companies about their business models and how it relates to the kind of transition that we need to make.
But again, Ernst, the G20 will not act if the business community and society
Absolutely.
don't put pressure on the governments.
And that's why I'm happy to share that here, because this will need the views and need the voices of many who believe that we need to move in this direction. And anybody who is interested to discuss this, I'm very interested to talk to you. We're looking for ways to put this forward. And as GRI, we do not have the final answer. We want to be part of the answer, but we also realize we'll have to work with many, many others, and we'll have to also work with some unusual partners. But this is the time to stick our heads together.
Okay, we've talked about the reset economy and the reset world. We have a reset conference this year, and we have changed the format to allow for a much more dynamic and interactive set of discussions and debates. And the time to go enjoy them is now. I want to thank Ricardo and Ernst very much for a very thought-provoking discussion.